Click.
Fresh ragu meat. I mean, I hope not. I hope you don't, you know.
Hi, team. Welcome to the Escape Podcast for Star Wars The Old Republic. This week, we're going to talk about why the only good Sorc is not necessarily just a healing Sorc. We'll explain that. We'll also cover the latest SWTOR news and the fun stuff going on in our guild, Alea Iacta Est. As usual, we have an astromech standing by to record and broadcast this show. Hey, EPC85, what spec are you, buddy? Yeah, well, as we know, we all know that Makia likes to say that the only good Sorc is a healing Sorc. But you know, I have a saying like that too. Can you guess what it is? That's right. The only good astromech is a pod-ejected astromech. So, get in the pod. Alright. Hi, Seema. How's it going and what have you been up to?
I like how APC85 actually guessed correctly.
He's spec'd for psychic abilities. So you sound a little
Yeah.
under the weather tonight, and I understand that that's the
Yes,
case.
well, I spent some time with my family on the holidays, and they gave me the rat gold plague, I'm pretty sure.
That is a terrible idea, spending time with family.
I didn't bring my rat gold vaccine with me, apparently. But I'm going to sneak over there in the middle of the night and explode in the living room, so get them back. We had a light week in Ops this week due to the holiday weekend, and I would like to say thanks to Major for hopping in at the last minute to help out when Maki had some kind of computer meltdown. Maki was able to join us in Mumble about halfway through the evening, but thanks, Major. And we did raid on one night, and we spent our time in Ravagers. And in that room right before Bulo, we tried to see how high we could get Spherix's DPS by letting him kill all the mobs in there. But we determined that his actually higher if he dies rather than if we try to keep him alive.
Yeah, it took too long. It like ruined his burst profile.
Right, exactly.
So, and we all have to contribute too. So we have to like finish him off. So he can burst really high in the beginning, and then we can finish him off for him.
Then we just let him die, right? Well, we had the whole team healing him, the mercs and the healers and everyone who could. But yeah, and then on Mandatory Fun Night we played in the Rackle Plague world, which we did the Ops boss, the Eyeless, which is always fun. I like doing that.
Yes.
And I know I made a big deal last week about saying I didn't want any of the infected anythings and I wasn't going to buy anything, but at the last minute I decided to buy that Plague Tail Monkey Lizard because I found out, which I would know this by reading my achievements, that you get an achievement for having all the pets that drop from the world boss and this monkey lizard, and it's called Galactic Veterinarian.
Really?
And I mean, who doesn't want that? So I had to get
Hands
that.
off the monkey lizard!
Yeah. I'll let you know, I did have to do extensive manual searching to find all the little pieces to buy him because it was like some DNA canisters and the fungal thing and the thing from Eyeless and the thing from the World Boss and the thing from the Rares, and so
Yeah.
I had everything, but they were of course on different characters, and we need a way of finding our stuff.
Yeah. I had to explain to someone
but
in the
yeah,
guild earlier this week too what all the different currencies were, because it's four different currencies that you need from the event. So that's good.
Right,
good
like I
times.
had Delphi up on one page with a picture of it, and then in another page I had my spreadsheet where I had taken some inventory notes earlier, which I think I talked about a few weeks back. I'm like, I had this one character had one of them, and I looked everywhere and I couldn't find it. And I was staring at all his bank, his bags, and everything, and then finally I did find it. So it's just like, it was there.
Yeah.
But anyway. But the good thing is I have my Plague Tail Monkey Lizard. Yeah.
Yeah, I see him right here.
So it's a good week. So we have with us, I'm happy to say we have with us Sverix, who's a buddy of ours who's on our Ray team, LOL, and he DPSs as a Sorc for that team. So Sverix, how has your week gone?
Hey guys, first off, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Um, Secondly, as far as my
Thanks for
week,
coming.
hey, no problem. Um, I did much of the same stuff that you guys
Yeah.
both did, seeing as how we're in the same ops group. Um, I have been cheating on SWTOR a little lately with a couple other games. I can't remember, somebody from Soldiers of Light turned me on to a game called Divinity: Original Sin,
Oh
which
yeah.
is kind of a turn-based
Oh, interesting.
Dungeons and Dragons, which I really got into that. I lost way too much time to it, but it's a lot of fun if you like that kind of game. And then I've also been playing a bit of Shadows of Mordor,
Yeah.
which I found out relatively quickly. I am not very good at console type games, and even though I'm playing it on a PC, I've been using a console controller to play it, and I ended up having to break down and go find a trainer so that I could at least enjoy the game a little bit. Um, it is difficult,
Interesting.
What do
to
you
say the
mean a
least.
trainer?
Um, a program that I can run before I launch the game, which then sets my function keys to things like
Oh,
God mode or instant arrow kills, things like that.
gotcha.
Yeah, it's a kind of game that at times just trying to move 150 yards across the map can involve having to kill 40 or 50 guys, which A becomes time consuming, and then B, a whole bunch of champion bosses will start showing up and just destroy you. And it punishes you because every time you die, the champions that survive or kill you get actually tougher.
Oh,
So if they've killed you, the next time you face them, congratulations, they're going to be stronger.
Oh great.
Uh, Good for people who like the game and are much more dexterous than I am with the controller.
Right. Right. Right.
But I've been doing that. Earlier tonight, I did step in and healed for Soldiers of Light on the pub side, um, and helped them down Underlurker, which was awesome.
that is awesome.
Excellent. Congrats to Lords of Light,
Yeah,
or
glad to hear
not
that.
Lords of Light,
Yeah.
but
Soldiers of
Soldiers of
Light.
Light.
Or, yes, soldiers. Um, so it's a little different because it's on the pub side, and I don't play the pub side enough, so a lot of the controls just feel weird to me. The healing, even though it's all the same things, just little things are weird, like how the channeled heal on the Sorc, it's called Innervate. You can see it really well on the Empire side. Nice purple line drawn between you and your target. So if you're not, there are times where I'm not exactly sure where somebody is, but if I'm casting a heal at them, I can see that purple line and I can go, oh, there they are. On the pub side, it's really, really hard to see. So sometimes when I'm actually using it to try and find somebody, I'm like, I still have no idea where they are because I'm trying to run closer to them so I can heal them, and I end up running away from them. But
I feel the same way with Trooper versus Merc because the Trooper has that green beam, and if you want to know where someone is, you can
yeah.
just shoot a green beam at them. But with the Merc, it's invisible.
But so that's what I've been up to. What about you, Max?
So same as you guys. I've been having fun this week with ye old Rakghoul event. I know some people were saying, "Oh, it's the same old Rakghoul event," but I still have fun with it every time it comes around. I didn't do a ton, but I did enough. I'm at legendary, so I hit legendary the day after the Rakghoul event last year. But I did the very first day
Nice.
this year go in and get my infected fractal mount on my mercenary. So I was very happy about that. I like it. It's a cool mount. So I think I had a ton of fun on Tuesday with both the spectacularly clefted intergluteal intergluteally clefted eyeless boss. And we did that a few times. I think we did it at least 3, maybe 4 times. We did it some on the Republic
Yeah.
and on the Imperial side for our mandatory fun night. So that was cool. And then we went upstairs and we saw a handful of people that were in a second group, and we combined our groups, and we did a combined group of about 20 people and killed the world boss a few times and bounced around a couple different maps. And people got prizes and fungal token whatever symbiotic things, and everybody had fun, so that was cool. Let's see, I also did my usual bits of Sorc PvP and some Saturday Night Galactic Starfighter with a few people in guild. We'd had our squadron out there fighting the good fight on Saturday. That's always fun. And as you said, we had a light week with the regular ops because Thursday Makia's machine took a dirt nap, so he was gone, but we did have someone fill in, and because he wanted me to lead it, we just did easy stuff because I wasn't going to take us too hard mode.
He did actually get in at the very end.
Yeah, we were able to pull him in because someone had to duck out, right? Oh yeah, someone had the youngster woke up in the middle of the night not feeling well, so it was good to have him back online by the end of the evening and back able to jump in. That worked well. And Sunday, just because everybody was doing family stuff, we took off. But still, plenty of fun stuff. I did finish up Firefight by Brandon Sanderson. It was my book this week, and I moved on. I posted out on Twitter there was 3 books that now I have in my wish list that are new. I saw the latest Hugo and Nebula Award winners for 2015 are out, the nominees. I typically go through and read all of the nominees each year, these years as well, and I've gone back and done all. I've read every single Hugo and Nebula Award winner back to the inception of the awards. So, on the list,
That's fantastic.
yeah, that took me a few years, but I did that in the late 90s through early 2000s, and then from then I just kept up reading all the nominees each year and the winners. So there are a couple on there that I'm definitely going to get to. One is The Three-Body Problem, which was written by a Chinese author and then translated to English. That's supposed to be very interesting. But I took a break in general. I don't even know if it's on the list, but it's Daniel Suarez's latest book, Influx. Daniel Suarez is awesome, so it's always fun sci-fi to get into. And then Firefight was fun. It's a young adultish, but still fun, and a good part 2 to the Reckoners series for people that like that anti-superhero alternate universe type of concept. That was pretty cool. But with that, I think we can get into some actual news.
Now an Imperial News Network report.
So I will let Seema save her respiratory system, and I will go through the news.
Thank you.
We did see in the developer blog, I think it came out in the last couple days, Courtney Woods did another writing special, a little short story. This one was a conversation between Jace Malcolm and his son Theron Shan, who apparently Satele failed to tell Jace Malcolm that he had a son for many, many years. I didn't know all the backstory as far as that went. I think there's a novel that I can read to catch up on it that should be interesting. But this is them going to Alderaan and having a little dinner conversation, and it's sort of tough for the dad that hasn't been around, and Theron's he's that reserved guy, and it was all right. It's good. So go read that story. We did see that patch 3.1.2 is going live this week. There's some interesting things going on in there. The patch notes are available. Everybody can check them out, and it should be live by the time people are downloading this. It'll be live on Tuesday. One of the things we saw also in those in the news around that came out at the same time as the patch notes is that there is a double XP week that will be going in on April 16th. So that is cool. We do know that part of this patch includes the rest of the capabilities around Mount Flourish, which means there will be an extra keybind that you'll be able to make certain mounts do an extra little animation, and that the mounts that do those extra things are going to start showing up in the cartel market soon. So they're not retrofitting any existing mounts, but new mounts that come out will, who knows, they'll shoot rockets, or it'll be a pony that rears up in the air, or whatever they do. I want a pony.
A unicorn that shoots a rainbow.
Shoots a rainbow out its butt. I want a space pony, and that would be great. There are some class updates that are going in, and I did notice a couple minor nerfs to my mercenary class, and we will talk in detail about some of the changes that are coming out to Sorc, because that will be the topic of conversation this week. That should be interesting. I noticed a couple small things. The solo mode Forged Alliances and Shadow of Revan flashpoints are now repeatable. So it sounds like anybody can go anytime and redo them as solo mode. Which,
oh, really? That's nice.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, why not? That sounds fine to me. I don't think there's a huge reason to, because I don't think the decorations drop. And like if you go into Manan, there's none of the Kolto barrels to kick. Which would be the reason that I would go in there solo, just to keep kicking Kolto barrels, because there's an achievement for doing them kicking many, many Kolto barrels. I don't know how many you have to kick, but... And then...
All of them.
Yes, all of them.
Well, XP, I guess.
Yeah, XP and fun.
Yeah.
And doing it for fun.
It could be a quick way to get a level or two.
Yeah, like if you're leveling to 60 and you get almost there and you finish, you could just go run one of those.
That's a very good point. A lot of people do, if they didn't do the Forged Alliances, or they sort of skipped some things along the way, they may not get all the way to 60 by the time they finish Yavin. I always did. I was surprised that anyone could not get to 60, because I never finished Yavin on any of my characters by the time I got to 60. But if you do need some extra XP, that's a great idea. And finally, with those patch notes, there is a fix going in. Apparently there was some unintended capability to transfer Warzone comms between characters by probably buying and refunding a Stronghold title that you could buy off of the PvP comms vendors down in the down by the where you get the decorations for PvP and Warzone comms. They're gonna fix that, and that won't be available to anyone anymore, which makes sense. They are being careful to say it's unintended and not you all are a bunch of exploiters. So
right.
They seem to be walking that line on this one. In other news, a couple continuing reminders that we've said the last couple weeks. The BioWare Cantina Tour is still set for April 18th in Anaheim as part of the big Star Wars celebration, so that should be fun. And the May the 4th is coming up, and we'll all be getting a free astromech as part of that. So that is cool.
Well, some of us think it's cool.
Hey,
some are just going to stick it in an escape
pod. I can always
pod.
use an extra astromech. I have a couple in the stronghold here. Yeah, see?
That's why he always needs extra
That's
astromechs.
true.
Yeah. Who couldn't use an extra astromech? I buy them
Max
by
is
the
on
gross.
the Astromech of the Month Club.
In guild news, mandatory fun nights continue on Tuesday nights. GSF nights continue on Saturday nights. Be there. We'll continue to stream those from time to time. We streamed the mandatory fun night. I didn't stream Galactic Starfighter this week, but if people want to see that, I can stream that too. Also, keep in mind that The Amazing Race, SWTOR, AIE SWTOR edition for the Jedi Covenant server is still in the works. Keep an eye on the forums and all of the major social news outlets. More broadcasts will be coming out about that pretty soon. And as always, you can keep an eye on our streams at twitch.tv/newoverlords and the Corley and twitch.tv/SphericSWTOR on occasion. And I saw we had another one tonight from Carl the House Jedi, who is Growly Didge in our forums, who is streaming one of the Ops nights tonight. He was streaming Soldiers of Light. So check those
Oh,
out.
nice.
And then I also certainly would want to say hi to the chat room. It's always fun having the chat room. I see a couple usual suspects in there, including DP Roberts, and we had at Crazy Glass Guy on Twitter, who is
That's Major.
Major
Yeah.
Debacle, and Zordia is in the chat room now too. So hello, XORDYH, an ultimately easily pronounceable name. So sorry about that. And a few other people who are in and out. So hello everyone that's jumping in and out. We really appreciate that. It makes the live broadcast pretty fun. But with that, I would also like to talk a little bit about why the only good Sorc is not necessarily just a healing Sorc.
Sanity is a prison. Let madness release you.
And why did I play that clip? Because I play a Sorc, and I always spec madness. So we also have with us this week is Spherix.
I was going to say, yeah, and I play Sorc, and I always spec lightning.
And then we have
And
one more Sorc.
most-
I didn't even realize we have all three specs represented in our
That's right, we do.
podcast
Oh,
this
yeah.
evening. Wow, how nice.
That is interesting.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I just have always, when I started playing the game, if you're going to be an Inquisitor, isn't your ultimate goal to be the Emperor? What does there do? Shoots lightning.
shoots lightning. Well, you still shoot a lot of lightning as madness too, but I like the.
Yeah.
I just got such a kick out of Deathfield all the time, and I just cannot give up Deathfield. That's why I've always stuck with madness, dropping the dots, and now with dot spread. I only PvP with my Sorc. I don't do PvE. If I was doing PvE, I would definitely do lightning, and we'll talk about that. And we'll talk about what some of the differences are. Although after this upcoming
After
nerf,
this patch, you might change your
who
mind.
knows? Yeah. Lightning might be terribad. I don't think so, but so we'll also talk a little bit about gear and stats, and I'll drill Spherix and quiz him on what his stats are and what I would need to do in PvE, because I just have some PvP mix on me. We'll talk a little bit about utility talents. We'll talk some about rotation. We'll talk about a little bit of buffs and cooldowns. We'll talk about some of the secrets and tricks of the trade, if you got any. And we'll also finish up with a little bit of a discussion of the changes that are coming in 3.1.2 and what those are going to potentially do to the class. So I guess let's kick it off with gear and stats and set bonuses and all that kind of thing. What do you do for your stat mix? So the key question I have is, what do you do for Alacrity in particular?
For Alacrity, I think I just have like maybe two pieces, one piece, two pieces with Alacrity on it. I don't really, I pretty much loosely follow K-Tap's guide from Delphi.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then I try not to think about it too much. I try to make sure I have plenty of power, plenty of surge, couple pieces with crit, couple pieces with Alacrity, maybe play around with them a little bit depending on how I'm feeling, how everything feels to be flowing.
Yeah.
If things are hitting and I'm finding I'm having to wait a little bit for something to proc, I might throw another Alacrity piece in there. But and crit, I don't know, might become more important. Hard to say.
Yeah.
But for the most part, and then for my augments, I just went with the main stat, the willpower.
Okay.
And that was because I did that right away, right up front. And I thought about switching over, but I'm only in 192 gear. If we start getting through the hard modes farther, I might think about switching some of those over to power. But again, that would be, I don't consider myself so good that the little itty bitty bit of extra DPS from switching the willpower to power, and my augments would would really make that much of a difference.
Right.
Sure. Sure.
It's more of just trying to get my rotation down, trying to get everything to stick at the right time, um, and trying to get the dance down with each fight.
Yeah.
Um,
That sounds about what I do with my Sorc as well. I'm skewed more heavily towards power than anything else, just with the PvP stats, power and surge. But
mhm.
I do know that you can play with it. Sorc is a good class to play with Alacrity on, which I thought was interesting. I have 0 Alacrity on my Mercenary. Mercenary walks the line. I think Mercenary could potentially benefit from it, but there are weird places in Mercenary rotation where Alacrity can actually sort of mess you up a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I just quick look. I'm just got one piece with Alacrity on it.
Okay, so
So
that's
111.
yeah, so that's so I've heard it go up as high as 300-ish, but I probably, let's see, on my current on my PvP Sorc, I probably have very little Alacrity, if any.
And right now I've only got one crit piece, which I'm probably low on crit. Um, but you know, again, if it starts feeling like it's making a, dropping my DPS a ton, then I might look at putting something in there. But I feel like I've been doing okay.
Oh yeah.
I've been keeping up with your mark, which, last expansion was really difficult for me to do.
Yeah, and we'll see after these nerfs to Mercenary as well. I know they were trying to tone down some of the advantages that a couple of the Mercenary specs had in PvE. So we'll see if that balances even more between us, because you can exceed me definitely, especially when there's multiple. Well, and that's going to change too when there's multiple targets.
Yeah,
Because some of your
and that's what I was
AoE
going
is
to say.
going to go down a little bit.
Because I do occasionally alt on a merc, and I was going to ask you if it feels this way to you, but you don't play a lightning Sorc. But I was going to say it does seem like the Mercenary DPS is much more geared towards a single target.
Yes.
It feels like I can do a lot better DPS on a single target with the Mercenary versus the Sorc. But then, yeah, it only takes adding 1 or 2 adds to a fight, and then the Sorc starts pulling ahead for me.
Right, which is interesting. So let's see. Utility talents, I don't pay too much. I just mostly took some of the obvious ones for PvP on my Madness Sorc. I do like being able to heal while I'm bubbled on my immunity bubble, and I do like being able to cast Force Leech on the move, which I did not do originally when I set up my PvP Sorc on Madness spec, because you do a lot of instacast stuff on Sorc anyway with Madness, and I didn't do it a lot, but now I'm using it quite a bit, and I am casting Force Leech because you also get a bonus to damage after casting Force Leech with either one of the utilities or something in the spec, so you want that in your rotation anyway. How about you?
Yeah, well, and with that mobility PvE, that's pretty much a requirement for a lightning Sorc, because to be able to cast Thundering Blast while moving, because Thundering Blast is your bread and butter.
Yeah.
That's your big hitter, and to be able to cast it while coming out from behind a rock and running towards Underlurker to get to the cross, and being able to cast a Thundering Blast while you're getting there instead of having to wait, stop, and then cast it. It's
right. There's a lot of
You almost
movement
can't.
in all of the Shadow of Revan operation fights, it seems.
exactly.
So I could see that being critical. I know on my Mercenary, I don't bother because I don't do a lot of, I think it's unload that you can do on the move. I don't do all that much of that, but I know because I'm Innovative Ordnance, so I'm more focused on the instacasts and the dots. But I know Apples does a lot of casting on the move. How does that work on Ruger? Are you adept at canceling your Thundering Blast? Or are you unleashing Thundering Blast at people when they're hostage
I'm
situation.
I'm adept at letting that fly.
Why not?
It's- uh, yeah, that's because of too many years of muscle memory built up in a game that allowed you to throw something like a slash stopcast in front of something,
Yeah,
Right.
right.
and now not being able to do that, and yeah, that's still a little difficult for me. And sometimes I just plain don't notice that Max has been
Or you notice that it's,
taken hostage.
or you notice and you let fly
Or
anyway.
if it's Machian, I notice, obviously.
Exactly.
But yeah, I do need to get better at reaching up for that escape key because it can be stopped.
Right,
You just gotta
right
get
with
up there
escape, just not with a
and do
jump
it.
anymore, which is what I always use.
Right,
Spacebar
which
is
is
what I always used.
I do catch myself doing that. You know,
Yeah,
stop DPS, and I immediately jump, and that doesn't change anything.
right,
The
exactly.
Thundering Blast still happily thunders along.
So what about rotation? How's your did you so this is one of the things I did with all the classes as soon as 3.0 hit. I did try to learn or figure out or adjust to what the rotation is. And some classes are more reactive rotations and some classes
Yeah,
are more set rotations. What is it for lightning?
I would say this is a reactive because you're looking for procs.
Yeah.
I mean, there is kind of an opening where you're going to want to. I like how our tank does a countdown before pulls, which allows me to hit recklessness and sort of have a crushing darkness precast
Yep.
before he even pulls. But, you get affliction on the target. Then you just have to cast crushing darkness pretty much every time it's off cooldown, because that'll refresh affliction. So you always want to be casting crushing darkness when it's up. You get procs for chain lightning. You get occasionally procs for double thundering blasts. And so I kind of set my screen up with some of the people who watched me when I stream said my screen looks very odd, but I tried to set it up in a similar manner to how I used to have. I'm going to mention another game, but how I used to have power auras up in
Right.
WoW.
Sure.
So I have 4 buttons that I have on a bar. I set them right in the middle of my screen. It would be nice if they could be invisible when I don't need them, but so be it. They're there.
I get it.
And that way I can watch whenever Thundering Blast is off cooldown. I can watch when Lightning Flash is off cooldown. I can watch when Crushing Darkness is off cooldown. I can watch every time Chain Lightning lights up, so that it's going to be instant cast.
Sure. Yeah, I like that. I like that idea.
I don't do a good enough job with my recklessness and polarity shift. I know I could do better, but maybe I need to move those up there too.
Yeah.
just so that they're visible, because there's so much of this game that involves running around like crazy. There's a ton of movement in the fights, which makes it difficult to keep your eyes off the middle of the screen.
Right. In PvP, I'm certainly reactive, although there is some setup. So Madness is nice, especially in PvP and in PvE because of the dot spreading. And I'll have 2 dots that will spread. So Demolish or Crushing Darkness doesn't spread with Deathfield, but the Affliction does, and so does the Creeping Terror. So I always try to make sure there's an Affliction and a Creeping Terror on a target, and then a Deathfield that touches both that target and as many other targets on field as I can get when I drop my Deathfield. And then it's mostly just casting lightning until you get a proc to cast the instacast Demolish, which is the Crushing Darkness. And then every once in a while doing Force Leech to set up greater damage, and using the Recklessness and Polarity Shift when you're going to be pounding enough damage into someone and have enough casts. So in PvP, it's definitely very reactive because you're you can't predict as much what the phase of a fight is going to be like. So
Right.
sometimes you waste them and blow them because somebody dies or you die, or I hate when you pop all my cooldowns and then I'm dead 2 seconds later.
Or somebody throws a hot ball at you.
Yeah, exactly. And then
Why'd you throw it
running
at the
around.
Sorc?
Yeah.
um, Another thing I forgot to mention is making sure you trying to cast lightning bolt to keep that buff up. I can't even remember now what it's called, but you stack it 3 times
Yeah.
on your target.
Right. Right.
And that's kind of your filler. That's your I can't remember what it's called in the Merc now, but that's your filler between everything else. If nothing else is lit up, and you're throwing out lightning bolts.
Yeah. So what about healing? Do you do much self-healing on yourself in I mean I do a lot of it
I
in PvP, but that's different.
I do. I try to. I try to take as much pressure off SEMA as I can.
That's nice.
In fact, because for us, the hard mode is definitely progression. That we're pushing our limits. So in my talents, I've got my static barrier healing me. I've chosen that corrupted barrier
Yep.
utility. Um, and that's one of the nice things about the Sorc is now you have access not only to unnatural preservation, which is your instant heal, but you also, even in DPS specs now, have access to resurgence, which is your hot.
Right.
So I can try and keep that going on myself if I'm looking like the fight needs it. Anything I can do to stay alive, because you do much more DPS alive than you do staring at the floor.
Yeah, I do a ton of healing in PvP. And this is a tip for anybody that's PvPing on a DPS Sorc, especially in unranked, where you're just doing big war zones. When it's about 8 seconds to go, the countdown before the match starts, I just start throwing a shield on every other person in the war zone. So all of that shielding both does 2 things. One, it keeps them alive, and it counts as healing for you. So I'll do say in a busy Void Star, I'll do 1 million or over 1 million, 1.2, 1.5 million damage, and do 400k to 500k healing also in a match like that. So a significant chunk of healing is going on, and that's mostly just throwing shields out on people once in a while, and then doing self-heal for myself off the bubbles and that unnatural preservation, and dropping a resurgence every once in a while and all that kind of good stuff. So it's quite a bit of healing, much more so even than the Merc, although the Merc's got the shield, the self shield, which it's got other defense, and plus you've got heavy armor, which is defensive.
Yeah, with the Merc you have to kind of the heals have cast times though, right? I think there's one that's instant.
Right.
But yeah, this is kind of nice because both the hot and unnatural preservation are instant cast.
Right.
So you can generally find a spot to fit them in.
Exactly.
Every once in a while, at the very least.
Yeah. So you pretty much have 3 because the bubble.
Yeah,
counts.
because I still can take the 1.48 seconds and cast Dark Heal.
Yeah. Well, then that's 4, right? But you have 3 instant ones,
Yeah.
which is nice.
Right.
So any other tricks? What other tricks, especially for lightning, would you tell people to be aware of, or secrets of the tricks of the trade?
Lightning to me is doesn't seem like it's one of the more complex rotations or anything of them. So it's kind of what's there is there. Just try to pay attention to it and trying to make sure your affliction doesn't fall off, which can be hard. I mean, what I've done lately with my target is I've I've got it near the top of the screen, and then I have the buffs on the top of it and extending upward. Because I've noticed, I can't remember how I've got it set, but my affliction on the target always appears near the front of the debuffs on my target,
Okay.
and that way I could get all those other debuffs. Because on some of those fights, when they were scrolling down, those debuffs are coming all the way down into the middle of my screen and just blocking an obnoxious amount of screen. And that way, when they're going up and off the screen, I can easily just see the ones I need to pay attention to.
Right.
Clever.
Right. So you're always. It is difficult. I would love to be able to filter and only see your debuffs on a target, but
I would absolutely love that.
I have gotten used to knowing where my debuffs show up, and I think there are a couple options and preferences where you can sort where your debuffs are mostly showing up at the front of the list, but
Yeah.
with Merc,
I'm
I've
not
got
sure
two
why.
dots that I need to be keeping up all the time also, and I'm trying to, or as often as I can, and I do need to keep an eye on those, and I would love to just be able to shut everything else off.
Yeah, the nice thing is you really only have to look for the affliction one, because Crushing Darkness, you should just be casting if it's castable.
Right.
Anyway.
Right. And it's relatively short,
And
so it's gonna
that
fall
dot,
off before you can
yeah.
cast it again.
Yep. Exactly. That one doesn't last as long as its cooldown, so
Right.
yeah. You're looking for that, and you have also the debuff that you put on with the lightning bolt, but you should always be casting lightning bolt when you have nothing else to cast anyway.
Right.
And that one isn't as much of a game changer as losing that affliction,
Right. Right.
because the affliction is what makes your thundering blast hit. As long as affliction's on your target, your thundering blast is going to crit every time.
Yeah. Right. Right. Which is critical, and which
Yeah.
which is also what
I
makes
see what you did.
Surge. Yeah. Which is also what makes Surge important for Surge.
Right.
Make sure you've got
Right.
that 70%.
It's what
Surge.
makes crit not necessarily as important,
Right.
because your main hitting ability is always going to crit if you've got affliction up.
Right. So it
Which
decreases the prioritization of crit in that case. Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Let's finish it off by a little discussion of some of the fun things coming to Sorcs in 3.1.2. So what's in this little this package of fun that we get this week?
Well, for all Sorcs, you just redesign of chain shock. So shock gains a 25% chance to produce a second, which that's kind of nice. But damage to force storm decreased.
Yeah.
So
That's the big one.
we had our shot with me trying to get more than 13,000 DPS and didn't get there. And we'll see. We'll probably have to be in mostly hard mode gear to get there again. But Force Storm does consume less force, which is kind of nice for at least the trash right in the front of Temple of Sacrifice,
Right.
which really are just there to make you take a lot of time AoEing
Oh, those guys have
until
so
you
much health.
can get to the first boss. Because they're not really terribly difficult. They have so many hit points.
All those Masasi, and
And-
we end up pulling we end up pulling like 3 or 4 packs at once.
We pull I think everything we can into one big group and then just sit there in AoE. And
for like 10 minutes.
yeah, with Force Storm, I run out of force, which is odd for a Lightning Sorc.
Right.
Because that's something Lightning Sorcs really don't have to worry about, is how much force they have generally.
Yeah, I never do on
and as
my Madness Sorc either.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
The only time I have to worry about force is when I'm healing. And even that
Right.
is a lot easier than it used to be, the way it feels to me. For Lightning specifically, you've got your forked lightning abilities affected by forked lightning now have a 25% chance to trigger a second arc, which used to be 30%. Forked darkness, thank you, adds 25% chance for crushing darkness to tick twice, which used to be 30%. So another one from 30 to 25.
Yeah.
And thundering blast, 25% chance to produce the second blast, down from 30%. Damage from lightning flash has been increased, and so since they increased the damage to it, they decided to increase its cooldown from 12 seconds to 15 seconds to make up for that additional damage.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. And then lightning bolt has been decreased and its force has been increased, which I don't, in all of that, how much force stuff uses is kind of not really important because I don't think that's going to be a problem anyway.
Right.
Which all of that's multiple items reduced from 30% chances of happening down to 25% chances of happening. So over the course of a whole boss fight, that's, with the same gear, that's obviously going to drop our DPS a little.
Yeah.
How much? Might not be a ton. Who knows?
Yeah, so
we'll see.
Single target probably won't drop too much, but it will drop a little bit. And then multi-target definitely will drop because of the lightning storm.
I've seen some people on Reddit guessing that it'll really only drop maybe around 300 DPS.
Okay.
But again, that's something really that we'll need to get patched and tested out.
So that's potentially 8%-ish for what people are typically parsing if they're talking 300 DPS on a target dummy, because everybody's going over 4K to 5K in 192 to 198 gear on target dummies. So, a little bit of a nerf.
Yeah. So, a little bit of a nerf. I don't know if maybe their thought was, we were just massively overpowered. I know it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I'm going to miss it.
Similar minor nerfs, maybe a little less, fewer nerfs than Lightning Sorcs are getting, but similar to what's happening for Mercenary. I did notice that. The one other thing I noticed that affects PvP is Lightning Storm also loses the snare that it had. So
I forgot about that.
That's probably not as critical in PvE, but that was definitely a useful tool in PvP. Any sort of snares are useful. I did notice Madness gets a tiniest bit of a buff, I guess. The Lingering Nightmares now increases the duration of crushing darkness and demolish by 3 seconds, up from 2 seconds. So we get an extra 1 second of crushing darkness, so extra 1 tick coming off our crushing darkness, which, it's not nothing. I don't know if that's going to make people be switching to Madness for PvE by any means, between the nerfs to Lightning and the buffs to Madness, but maybe there'll be less of a disparity between those two at this point.
Yeah, that's not something that's always. I've been Lightning the whole time, and it's less of a hey, this spec does more DPS than everything, so I'm gonna do it, and more of a lifestyle decision, I guess you could say.
Yeah. And I've always stuck with Madness because I like it. Yeah, same thing.
Yeah. And that's the whole point, right?
Yeah, exactly.
At least last time I checked, the whole point we played games was to have fun. That was it.
Right. We are casual progression, so we play what we like, and we're not too concerned with optimizing to the max. Although I'm always
and I think well, you're always optimized to the max, right?
Exactly.
But I think that BioWare's done a pretty good job of making it so that you really don't have to. I mean, yeah, if you want to maybe push, when they introduce a nightmare mode, you and you want to be the first to do it or something like that. Yeah, maybe you are forced to do something, but for the great mass of us that we can all see most of the end game content, even in hard mode, really, without having to
Right.
change to a spec that you maybe don't enjoy or don't enjoy as much as the one you do like.
Yeah, it's tough to go really wrong, and if you like
Yeah.
it, then play it, and that's great. And a really good player can play any class well and do well, so that's cool. All right, well that was fun. I like Sorc. My Sorc is my second most played class because of the PvP I do and how often I log into it. I do want to. I keep wanting to bring it into PvE at some point. I think I should build out its PvE set. Having that accuracy is something you don't have in PvP, so I can't just go in with my PvP gear. But I'll do that sometime. And
Yeah, you probably have enough extra comms on your Merc. You could
yeah,
buy some
and an extra
that.
gear that keeps dropping because we keep farming Ravagers. I probably have I know I
Right.
have a bunch of at least 186 pieces that I'm sure I can use. So
Well, don't tell Maki. I was actually thinking of seeing if we could start bringing alts in on our farm runs.
especially for
Not
Ravagers.
necessarily our.
If everybody's got everything they need. Because I think there was just a couple people who needed one or two last things out of there. I need some more of
Yeah,
those
don't tell
Rishi
Makia.
hollow signs.
Exactly. We'll just keep this between us.
Yeah, no one will ever hear about it. All right, but I think with that, our little EPC 85 droid is ready to serve his role, his spec for jumping in escape pods and orbiting the galaxy. So thanks for listening and or joining our chat room. I saw we had a few more people jumping in and out of the chat room. Again, thanks to Hupra and a couple other people that were in and out. We certainly appreciate that. So also, thanks for watching the stream on twitch.tv/New Overlords, which we're now doing every Monday night for the podcast. Around between 10 and 10:30 Central is about the time we start up the stream. And you can always follow us on Twitter for questions or comments at MaxTheGray and at AIASEMA, or find us on Jedi Covenant and ask us for a guild invite. We are always excited to have like-minded people joining up in the guild, so please come do that. And you can find AIE Guild information elsewhere, anywhere on the web, including Facebook or Google+. And we will talk to you soon.
Later, guys.
Bye.